Three-eyed seeing is connecting indigenous values, knowledge, and theory to Western philosophy, and seeing how the relationships between these two methods connect so deeply to the relational aspect of worldviews. By being cohesive, inclusive, and relational, we learn to coexist in a respectful way.
My name is Kennedy Anderson. I am an Anishinaabe and Cree woman who was raised in Penawintang First Nation. I currently reside on Treaty 1 territory in Winnipeg. I moved 2.5 hours away from my home community to the city to pursue my education and career. Being raised in a family who lived off the land came with a variety of teachings filled with values that has shaped me into the person I am today. To be kind, to not harm animals or the land, to offer a helping hand, to work hard, and to keep family ties strong. As a child, I would take along with my dad and my uncle as they worked in the garden, picked medicines, and gathered wood. Our days would include storytelling, language sharing, and laughter. If we were not at baseball or hockey games, we would be out on the land working. By watching and helping, mostly get in the way, but to me that was doing my part. It also helped me along the way to learn the value in working and the importance of caring for our beings through the land. My great-grandmother and grandfather's home was situated by the river, and we always had a big garden, so there was always something for us to do. My cousins and I would be out for hours in the bush making forts, mini camps, and playing manhunt. If we would get thirsty, we would all run back to the house and take turns drinking water from the hose. If we would get hungry, we would send one of the younger kids inside for a small cup of sugar, and the older kids would grab sticks of rhubarb from Gran's garden so we could eat them with our sugar. I still remember both the sour and sweet tastes of the green and pink sticks. I always thought it was an adventure to go out in the bush and play with rocks at the water or play with the mud in the gardens. As a kid, it was a pathway for me to do land-based living. It was, and it still is, therapeutic to me, hearing the different birds sing, the wind whistling, the way that the trees sound like an old door closing, the smell of the fresh air and the different plants in the trees. As kids, we would get taught basic medicine teachings from our gran, like using dandelion flowers and willow bark to help with warts, cuts, and scrapes. I cherish those small teachings that still reside to me to this day. Going out on the land is challenging work. Whether you're going hunting, fishing, or gathering medicine and berries, sometimes it's a few days harvesting and processing, depending on what your trip is for. In my family, we have roles and responsibilities. We all contribute and help each other. When we would go fishing, my dad would teach me about the different fish, what people eat and what people do not eat, how to identify different plants and trees and what they can be used towards, how to hunt, process, and preserve wild meat. We are constantly learning and relearning skills like trapping, language, tree tapping, and high tanning. Traditional knowledge is a lifelong journey. I have been learning from an early age, and I still feel as I have a long way to go. During the challenging days, my dad always reminds me, if it was easy, everyone would do it. And although I do not currently live in my home community, I feel very much connected to my culture and to my roots. I get out on the land as much as I can to help my family gather medicines, berries, and wild meat to sustain us for the winter. To me, doing this examples Minopima Diziwin, or a good life. I feel grateful to have a strong connection with my family, my culture, and to the land.
My name is Chelsea Himmelman. I was born in Inuvik, Northwest Territories. My brother and I were adopted when we were very young and moved to Yellowknife, Northwest Territories. As a kid, my adoptive parents thought it was important to stay connected with my culture, but being at a very young age, we did not understand why it was important. We eventually moved to Winnipeg, Manitoba, and started grade 1. When starting school, I tried to understand why my brother and I did not look like the other kids in my class, wondering why we had darker skin than everyone else. As I grew older, I got bullied from the other kids for being different and tried super hard to fit in with my other classmates. I never grew up learning my culture and the teachings that came with being Inuit. I always felt uncomfortable speaking about my culture and wanted to be more like my friends. When I was in high school, I focused on making friends and being closer to my friends who were white and never connected to my culture. After high school, I started working at different jobs and focused on making more money and more work experience. After a few years of working, I decided to go back to school and wanted to get a better education for my future. I decided to go to Red River College and was unsure of what I wanted to pursue in the future. I found an Indigenous program and was super nervous going back to school and felt scared of what the program would provide. As I started the program, I started learning more about my culture and the different Indigenous teachings and knowledge. I kept learning more and enjoyed listening to other people who gave me this knowledge. I learned how important my Indigenous culture is and how I felt sad I did not know anything. Looking back at my youth, I felt sad on not trying hard enough to stay connected to my culture. This program has taught me so much, and I'm grateful for everyone around me to help me reconnect with my culture. I found the beauty and importance of being Inuit, and being able to learn about my culture has been a gift. Reconnecting with my culture has been life-changing and a blessing. I'm always trying to learn new ways to engage more with my culture. I accept that I'm still learning and appreciate the people around me that encourage my learning path. I believe everyone has their own path in learning about their culture. What steps are you taking to keep learning or accepting your culture? I think reconnecting with your culture isn't about going back in the past, but moving forward differently.
Hi, my name is Mason Tyler Sanderson. I was born and raised in Winnipeg in a middle-class Christian family. As I was growing up, Indigenous culture was never a part of my life. It was just something my family didn't believe in. But we did have our faith and our church. The religious upbringing within my home church shaped me into who I am today. The lessons my father had taught me guided me to kindness and empathy for those around me, something I continue to practice daily. My belief taught me how to love my neighbors, treat them the way I want to be treated, and most importantly, accept others for who they are with open arms. These teachings I would not change for the world, as they have become my foundation. Despite what I was taught, my understanding was innocently flawed. I went through years of school declining to learn of any other religions and cultures, as I had held the belief that partaking in them went against my beliefs, as if I were actively going against my own. This understanding was not out of malice, but misunderstanding. As I aged, the relationship with my faith began to falter. I became angry and hurt by it when I experienced the pains of losing loved ones, the kinds you wouldn't want to live life without. I began to shape my own path and find a path that I believe in, what most makes sense to me as I navigate the world and try to make sense of it all. With maturity, I've become more open-minded towards cultural practice and beliefs. I found that upon reflection of my experiences, it had left me longing to know more of my history and my heritage. I had begun to reflect on my upbringing, drawing parallels between the history of Canada and how multiple generations of my family chose faith over culture. This reminded me of what Richard Henry Pratt said, "Kill the Indian in him and save the man." This had proven effective as not one of my grandparents practiced nor believed in their Indigenous culture. With my mind made up, I decided to seek guidance of an Indigenous elder and learn his perspective. The elder shared his story of tragedy, resilience, silence, and reconciliation. I listened patiently as I had not caught on to where the conversation was going, or even if it was nearing its end. Then the elder's words hit me like a speeding truck. He said, "We make room within ourselves to make room for others. Know who you are and how we can worship together." A knot formed in my throat as my entire relationship with my faith and my cultural disconnect suddenly made sense. The music I had been listening to had the lyrics, "My heart is going south to Hamilton. It's not worth much, but it's more than enough." The message of longing for something I never knew suddenly made sense. The meeting with the elder left me with the realization that culture, religion, and heritage are not so black and white. Whether we practice culture or not, whether we believe in a greater power or don't, we can make room for others within ourselves, and we can celebrate together.
Bringing these three perspectives together, we are sharing our stories, and we hope anyone will think about how they value their own culture. Everyone has their own path in life, but take a second to think about how you have participated or engaged with your own culture, whether that be contributing to the community or respecting where you come from. Everyone has their own story to tell. How do you reflect on your culture as you move forward today?